Moving to the flowchart depiction of male reproductive system. In this, we will draw first of all the TES, TIS, testis, where the formation of sperms takes place. Formation of sperms. Along with that, secretion of sex hormones. Secretion of sex hormones. Then it would lead to a tubular structure which will move forward. This is known as vas deferens. Vas deferens. DEFERENS. This particular one will automatically come here and join to seminal vesicles. Then here is located the urinary bladder, from where the urethra is coming. Alright, so this is a urinary bladder. Here we will show that whenever this vas deferens joins the urethra, here another pair of glands do open up. One opens immediately right here, another one will be here. So these three would be, first one, as we have already discussed, this is seminal vesicle, and this one is prostate gland, prostate, prostate gland. Always remember, this is one. These are in a pair, so we write 2 present. Okay, and the third one which we are going to draw here, this is known as Cowper's gland, COWPER. These again are 2 in number. That means in a pair. Clear? So this is how these 3 glands are present. Finally, this one, the tube, is known as urethra. Urethra carries urine from the urinary bladder, as well as it carries sperms from the vas deferens. Here we are clear with the role of testes, and this is how the flowchart depicts that this is the movement of sperms. So what vas deferens does? Carries sperm to the urethra. So its function is it carries sperms. Then seminal vesicle, the pair that we have written here, it secretes a watery alkaline fluid that contains nutrients like fructose, and it releases its content into the ejaculatory duct during ejaculation. This one is prostate gland. It also secretes mucus, slightly alkaline fluid, which is also released during the ejaculation. So basically the secretion got mixed during ejaculation. Then Cowper's gland, it also secretes mucus and alkaline fluid into the urethra. Urethra, the common one which carries urine as well as sperm. This is how the entire flowchart depiction of male reproductive system is shown, right? Moving to the female reproductive system. Female reproductive system. In case of females, we say they are more complex as compared to the males. Why so? Because of the fact that it has to accept male gamete, and secondly, it has to produce eggs. So one system which is responsible for producing eggs, and the second system which will accept the male gamete and will undergo fertilization. So both are working together in the same system. That's why we call it little complex compared to the males. Now, this system consists of number 1, ovaries, which are in a pair. Number 2, fallopian tube. Other name of fallopian tube is oviduct. Again in a pair. Then a common uterus and one common opening, that is vagina. Right? Now this opening is for receiving the sperm as well as for removal of the fertilized we can say egg as well as the unfertilized egg. So this is one opening. Ovaries. It is almost two almond shaped ovaries which are basically located in the lower part of the abdominal cavity. So these are the two ovaries which are in the lower part of abdominal cavity. It is connected by a ligament. This is a ligament with which it is connected to the uterus region. And the ovaries are the primary sex organs because they also help in the production of female gamete, which we call egg, as well as it also secretes. We know there are two hormones which are secreted here. One is estrogen, another one is progesterone. Okay, so two hormones are secreted here along with the production of egg. And each ovary is composed of ovarian follicles. These follicles only contain this large ovum, which at the time of puberty, at the age of puberty, will mature and will be able to fertilize. So after menopause, the ovaries become small and they lose their follicles. Then moving to this structure, which will be a funnel like, and then connecting the other ovary. This will be a oviduct region. Now these are the oviducts. Okay, these are the oviducts. About 10 to 12 centimeter long, and it is a muscular tube which carries the egg from the ovary to the uterus. Muscular tube. Right? What it does, it carries eggs for fertilization or maybe removal from the body when it is unfertilized. So this funnel shaped opening which lies near this ovarian region, this is the funnel shaped opening which is lying at the tube also in this one corner and in the ovarian region. This is the one which receives the egg when it is mature From here the egg passes forward. This funnel shape, it has small finger-like projections, thumb-like projections, finger-like projections, which can hold the egg whenever the egg is released on maturity. And the other end is narrow. This is the site of fertilization, where fertilization takes place. So basically, if a question comes, where is the site of fertilization in the female reproductive system? It is the oviduct. So this is site of fertilization. It opens into a bag-like structure which looks inverted pear-like, and we call it uterus. This inverted pear-like structure or bag is known as uterus. The main thing about uterus is it lies behind the bladder, and whenever the fertilization takes place, embryo gets attached to the uterine wall. This is the uterine wall we are talking about. This uterine wall becomes thick and spongy so that it can receive the fertilized gamete, the fertilized egg here. So this is the wall of uterus. Let's mark it here. Uterus. Large inverted pear-like. Structure, and embryo gets attached here. Then we come to this long narrow tubular structure. This long narrow tubular structure is a muscular tube which is about 7 to 10 centimeters long, and we call it vagina. This region is vagina. Here we say it is muscular tube, 7 to 10 centimeter long, contains elastic tissue. It is a passage. It is also known as birth canal. Why? Because it allows the passage of the baby at the time of childbirth. Clear? And secondly, it is adapted to receive the male's penis during copulation. So this is one long tube, also known as birth canal, as well as adapted to receive male's penis during copulation. Clear? So these are the parts of the female reproductive system. First is ovary, which are in a pair attached with the ligaments to this uterus. Then oviduct number 2. Then uterus number 3. Vagina number 4. Moving to the sexual cycle in females. When we talk about the sexual cycle in females, we are talking about the fertility period of females, which begins at puberty. So when it begins, fertility period, it begins at puberty. That is about 10 to 12 years of age. Now when one of the two ovaries start releasing ovum, from where the ovum comes? From the ovaries. It releases ovum. Clear? Both the ovaries do not release their ova at once. This is the first ovary, this is the second ovary, right? They do not release their ova immediately at one go. No. This is a process which happens alternatively. Means They alternatively release their ova, one after the other, and the period interval or the period between the release of ova is generally 28 to 30 days. Let me explain you a little. For example, if one ovum is released from the left ovary, that is on 1st October, the next ovum is released from the right ovary, that is on 28th or 30th October. Clear? So first one from here and the second one from here. And then the next ovum is obviously released from the first one. So this way the release of ova is controlled by a female hormone. Which hormone? Estrogen. It is responsible for the release of ova. Clear? Which is not secreted constantly but in cycle still it manages. This cycle lasts about 28 to 30 days where one ovum is released. And what do we call this cycle? We call it menstrual cycle. Means the cycle of events taking place in a female reproductive organ like in ovaries and uterus under the control of sex hormones, and in every 28 days marked by bleeding or menstrual flow is known as menstrual cycle or the sexual cycle in females. See the control center for the production of this gamete ova, right? It's the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. Hypothalamus stimulates the release of follicle stimulating hormone and LHS from the pituitary gland. It is in the hypothalamus. And from the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland together, the secretion of FSH and LH. Remember FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, luteinizing hormone. These two, which are here in the pituitary gland, these are the gonadotrophic hormones because they control the ovary and the reproductive organs as well as their functioning. Clear? Now starting with the cycle and the events which are taking place one after the other. First of all, I'm starting with the examples of dates. Like for your understanding, what are we doing is, I'm writing the days. Example of days. Clear? And here I am writing events which are happening in the female reproductive system. Remember, this is the 1st to 5th. This day, 1st to 5th, is known as the menstruation period. Menstruation period, which we also call the bleeding period. Clear? First of all, what happens here? Events. Fertilization does not take place, so no fertilization. Secondly, what happens here? The thick layer of uterus, it breaks down. Clear? What happens when it breaks down? The degenerated part of uterus, it moves along with the blood vessels. Degenerated part of the uterus along with the blood vessels, it moves out in the form of bleeding from vagina, and this period is known as menstrual period or the menstruation period or simply periods. Clear? Then FSH. Remember what is FSH? Follicle stimulating hormone. From where it got secreted? From pituitary. It stimulates the development of follicles. Right? What it does in this follicular development, it will develop primary oocyte into primary follicle. Means the further process of formation of ova starts. Then moving to the proliferative period. What happens in this proliferative period? Next is the days are 6 to 14. Basically when we write 6 to 14 day, it's from 1st to 14th only. Because 1st to 5 is menstruation period taking place and 6th onwards this process quickly begins. And we call it proliferative phase. Proliferative phase where the follicle development takes place. Here, developing follicle releases the hormone estrogen. Now this follicle has started developing, it will release the hormone estrogen. What it will do? It will repair. What is to be repaired now? Repair and develop lining of uterus. As well as fallopian tube. Why? Because it has to regulate menstruation of that follicle. Right? And every time one ovary releases the egg. Now, so what happens? It is regulating menstruation of only one follicle so that only one ovum is released at a time. Secondly, maintains the release of one ovum at a time. Clear? This hormone estrogen also builds up the conditions so that mature ovum is released from the ovary into the body cavity, which has to go to the fallopian tube. So what will it take care of? It will take care of mature ovum because it has to get released into the oviduct. Clear? After this we move to particularly the 14th day. What happens at the 14th day? Same way we will write days here and events here. Now 14th day. On this day, release of ova from the ovary takes place. Clear? Release of ova from the ovary takes place and this process is known as ovulation. This is an important point here. On 14th day, the mature ova is released from the ovary and reaches the fallopian tube. This is ovulation. Then 15th to 28th day. This is known as secretory phase. In this phase, another hormone, progesterone, now comes into action. Progesterone. It is released from the ovary. Obviously, like estrogen released from the ovary, progesterone is also released from the ovary. What will it do? It stimulates the uterus. Stimulates the uterus to maintain its thickening, as well as the glandular activity in the uterus and vagina. So it is mainly responsible for the thickening of the uterine lining, progesterone. Clear? Then the release of progesterone will automatically increase the body temperature of the female. That is a correlated phenomena of this hormone. Release of progesterone will increase the body temperature of a female. So here it is when setting up the body, or when it is taking up, that whether the lining gets thickened. Then in case fertilization occurs, both the hormones continue to cause thickening of the inner lining of the uterus as well as the fallopian tube. Means they further help in proper implantation of the fetus if fertilization takes place, because then only the embryo development and the embryo attachment fixation will take place in the uterus. Clear? The normal functioning of the ovary and uterus, it stops during pregnancy. This you have to keep in mind. Ovulation is stopped and then menstruation gets stopped till the birth of the offspring. And if no fertilization occurs, then menstruation starts, making the beginning of the next cycle. So I'm writing both the points here, that in case fertilization occurs where? In fallopian tube, then hormones continue to cause thickening of the inner lining of uterus and fallopian tube. Okay, and they help in proper implantation. Implantation of fertilized egg, meaning embryo, which is going to be the fetus in the uterine wall. And at this time, normal functioning, like the ovulation process, menstruation process, menstrual flow, it stops till childbirth. And if no fertilization takes place, then the menstrual cycle starts or marks. Then the menstruation starts the marking or the beginning of next cycle. Clear? This is how the events are seen related to the context, that what happens where and how. Clear? Moving to fertilization and post-fertilization changes. We see fertilization, the process of fusion of sperm nucleus with the egg nucleus to form diploid zygote. This is called fertilization. Fertilization occurs only when copulation occurs during the ovulation period. It means whenever this occurs, the menstrual flow has to stop, ovulation has to stop. And then post-fertilization, in post-fertilization we say when this zygote is formed, this zygote will automatically transform into an embryo. This embryo is always attached or implanted to the uterine wall. Clear? This uterine wall, which is thickened because of the action of the hormones progesterone, over there helps in the fetus growth as well as development. How? We say that whenever this first organ which is formed in the developing fetus is, we say, the neural tube or the spinal cord, then accordingly there is a relationship developed between the mothers and the fetal membrane, the uterine wall and the fetal membrane. This umbilical cord, it is a structure. Umbilical cord, it is a structure which develops in the 4th week. 4th week of fertilization between the fetal membrane and the uterine wall. And we call this covered structure as placenta. Clear? In this placenta, what happens in placenta? The fetal blood and the maternal blood, they come very close to each other, and what do they help in? They help in exchange of materials, then exchange of material between the fetal blood and the mother blood, and the definitely nutrients, water, oxygen, minerals, vitamins, all get exchanged from the mother's blood into the fetus blood. But it gives off all the waste. Fetus blood gives off all the waste, CO2, urea, etc. from here to here, right? So the complete development of fetus from the initial stage of conception till the birth is called gestation. This is the gestation period. Gestation period, that means the journey, the complete development of fetus from the initial stage till the birth is gestation, and it is about 280 days period, or we say 40 weeks. Clear? And gestation is followed by paturation. Paturation means the act of expelling the full-term young one from the mother's uterus at the end of gestation. Paturation is the act of expelling the full-term young one from the mother's body. Clear? Next topic is population control.